Now, beginning to do some of the wiring. This is the battery box that I'm putting in here. It's one of these little 2 battery 9-volt or AAA's. It won't fit with the lid in, so I took the lid off and then actually just ground that little stop when the lid used to go on. It used to slide like that, and it had a stop there. And then I had to grind the switch down a little bit, but now it does fit. Yeah, see, it does fit now. Now the wires coming out of here are going to a bulb back there. That way that'll give us some light for this little turret. And then I joined them all together. I cut these shorter. I joined them all together with some long wires here, which will come down, because this will shove in this way. These will come down out through here and go into this part. They'll actually go through this notch there. And then I'll put a connector on the end of this so it can connect to the wire harness, I guess you could say. And that way it can distribute the power throughout the rest of the ship. So we'll put a connector on there. And if I ever want to have this down and displayed, what I can do is I can have this down and I can make a jumper connector. Because I don't think, in order to have a real long wire, I'd have to tuck a lot. So I can have like a jumper connector I can bring with me to plug into this, which would come out of the bottom here still. And that way I can have the interior lit when the ship's down, but this far enough that I can set this away. So it's going to have to be a pretty long jumper wire. Or just have another battery pack that I can just plug in. But now I should be able to get this in because it's a tight fit. So hopefully it doesn't break trying to get it in there. I'll have to look in the instructions and see if they offer any suggestions, because that's quite a tight fit. But I think it'll do it. Probably go like, just want to be careful of these areas right there. But I also got to put this turret in. I was going to start doing the glass. I did an experiment with the glass. It seems like the quickest and easiest way to do it is just hitting it with a clear coat. It fogs up at first, but once it dries, it's fairly clear. There's a little haze to it, but not much. And it's going to be fun. Plus, I was also thinking I'm going to hit this whole ship with a flat, and I want to leave my clear glass in a shiny state. So that's another reason. So all the glass will probably go in last. Once we do that, we can put this in, which we're real close to doing, and then drill the magnets for this. But I think for now, once I get this tucked back in there, and I left enough so I could always pull this battery pack out to change the batteries. So that should be enough. That goes down, yeah. So I got 2 of the engine's lights in. I did a test on this main one the other day when I got this light in. This is the power that's going to come down into here from the battery. The battery's in there. And then we have it lighting up a light in there for the turret, and it'll feed these. But I got these 2 in, and really all I'm doing is just wiring them to a little piece of styrene, a little blue flashing LED, and then I'm just pulling them through and sticking them through like that. And I'll go in there and paint more silver to get a little more reflections. I already glued the plastic clear part to the nozzles. And these are just sitting in there. I might even just leave them as a, in case I ever need to get in there, because they sit in there okay. And I did some little detail on the little hydraulic parts on the nozzles, and did some pipes in a copper and brass. Sorry, out of camera. I did those two in a copper, those in a brass, same on the top. But let's get this last engine one in. Seemed to be easier for me to run my little snake wire, chase it through the tunnel. This way seemed to be working the best. Although I haven't stuck this in there to make sure there's no weird support. So I wonder how fun it's going to be to go through that wing to get to that light that's real far away. I might need a stiffer wire than this magnet wire is what I'm using here. There it is. Let's twist this up. Let's try another ways, but it seems like if I get a twist on here, and I just twist the magnet wire around it, it kind of causes little spiral grabs. Hopefully we can get this one in without any problems. That one was giving me a problem. This one's easier straight. Really doesn't have a tunnel to go through. There we go. I think before I was getting the bundle, the wire I was pulling through from the LED was snagging here. It was coming off and bunding up. You know, it was getting like this. There you are. So they've just been pulling it tight. However they land, and there they land. I guess I should probably glue them. There we go. And we can actually slide this one in. We'll definitely clean this up when it comes to the permanent. Come on. Then take you out. Just gonna connect you to the you. Hey, let's put you all in there. Now, here we go. And we got this other smaller engine that goes here. It looks like they can modify these Jedi shuttles however they want. Maybe if you don't want a gun turret in here, you can have a fifth engine and stuff like that. So that's kind of neat. Yeah. And I might hit a little more steel, steel wool to the back of the clear parts. But I don't know. That's pretty good. Her engines are never like really bright. But I'm going to put some silver back there for more reflection, or I can even maybe do a silver tape to really get it to reflect out of there. But that's working pretty good. And enough you can see it in the bells when it's This is a little bright. I'd like to dim that down. Like I almost might put a resistor on it. Or I can even go and hit the bulb with a little white to diffuse it down. Like a real thin white, because or even a white, because it'll still glow through. But that might dim it down a little bit too. Hopefully it won't change the color. That's where white usually works good, but it might bring that down a notch. Plus, it doesn't have the glass in yet neither, so that will hopefully dim it down. But I think I might touch that with a little bit of white. Yeah, so I'm happy there. We got engines and a gun turret light going. Well, getting some wiring done. Engines are all hooked up, except for the little one until we actually get that painted. Still got to do the silvers and stuff like that and get it glued on, but it's so much easier to just work with this like this. But I got the interior lights on for these two rooms. If I can get it to below here. So we got some warm lights going on in there. You see that one? Kinda. And then the other one is going. There it goes. So they're on. So I went with a warm white, and then I'm going with like a yellow. I can show you what they're going to look like in the bunk areas. There we go. Now, so it's something a little warmer in your living quarters. And of course, I'm doing the top one and the bottom one here, but I just stuck blank bulbs in the other bunks just so from inside you can see them. I got to figure out how. Well, we'll have to wire them up and slide them into those tunnels. So I'm going to do a couple circuits here. I'm already started soldering the interior lights in blue, even though I did the engines in red, but I think I'm going to have the engines on a switch too, and the interior lights on a switch. That way, when this is all closed and you're not going to see the interior lights, I might as well have them off, saving battery power. If I have it displayed and that's closed, no sense having, save me 2, 4, 6, 8. That's 80 milliamps there. But also, I'm going to turn off the 5 engine lights when I'm down here. So that's 2, 4, 6, 8. That's 80 milliamps being shut off. If I had it on its landing gear, the engines really wouldn't be running then anyway. So I'll turn them off as well. And up front, permanent power, like as soon as you turn it on, will always be the gun turret light, the cockpit lights, the wing lights. They'll always come on, even if I have this off, because I already have this wired to be permanently on. Plus, I could also, like I said, I could have a separate battery pack powering this when this is off. Yeah, so the switches are going to be for the engines and interior light, which will also take care of the landing gear light. Because like I said, the only time I'll have that landing gear light on is when the interior is on and open. And I'll have to have the landing gear on for that. So what we'll do is we'll run a blue and a red for 2 separate circuits. The blue will go to the bunks lights because it comes out here. I already have a wire snake through, so I can pull the wires through. It comes out down here at the bottom. There's a bottom hole there it comes out of. So we'll snake a blue and a red and a black. So our black will be our common negative, which I can use for both circuits. And a blue will go to the interior, which really is just going to go to the 2 bunks. And the red will do the cockpit and the wing lights. So I am going to continue doing that. I think I'm going to snake. These are all glued down now, so I think I'm going to snake wires up here and try to get these bunk lights wired up. This will be fairly simple because I can just stick a bulb right into the back of that. So that's nice and easy. And this piece here that spins gives you plenty of room for a junction. So I'm going to continue, get these wired up. I think that's what I'm going to do is clip these really tight and solder my leads onto them and see if I can get them to squish through these little holes that'll come out here. And then we'll attach them to the blue light wire that's coming up here. All right, got all the engine wires tied together. I ran the ones here for when I put that piece in. That way I can get all those. These are all the engine wires. This is the hot that's leading up to here. I got those pulled through. Blue wire is going to be for the interior circuit for basically the bunks. And the red's going to take care of the cockpit and the wing lights. I was trying to get some wires down through here, but it built a support in there and I cannot get that support to break. But I tried everything to try to snake even a wire down through or back up this way, and it just keeps getting caught where it bends. So that's all right. But I got these, at least Sabine's bunk wire, and then I'll wire this other set, shrink tube those, and see if I can get this to get in there and fit. Because we're going to have to kind of pinch these prongs so they line up with the holes that are there, the tunnels. And I already got this fish through so I can pull these through. So they're coming out clear. Just one thing I gotta watch, like probably put support blockers if I'd ever print this again in those tunnels. This I'm hoping will at least absorb any of the impact of it getting squished against that wall. Or to keep them from shorting out too. There we go. That way I can squish those together and not worry about a short. I would give it a test try, but I already have that wire sticking through. So let's get these two soldered. Make sure all this is flat. This is another thing. I don't really have anything to hold this. I guess I need to build a little vise, even if it's a little. I have a fill up one that I can print that can hold pieces like this, which would be great. Um, I can get those tinned. Yeah, I'm using the blue wire, so it just makes it easier. I know what to connect when I make the wires different colors. And then we'll try to see how we can get two switches back in here. I got real small ones, but I'd rather use these rocker ones. I could use these real small ones, but I think I can get two rockers back here if I just go in CAD and 3D print something that'll fit. Yeah, I can just have it go across here. One for the engines and one for the interior light. Alright, can we get this one to go just as nice as the other one? Problem is, Okay, got this side pulled through. Now I ran my snake wire through. We're going to try to get this one to do the same. What I've been doing is kind of twisting these, and then I'll twist it around this wire. And so far, it's been working pretty good at gripping it. All right, let's pray and hope. Let's guide it through the hole first. There they are. Barely. We're jammed. That's why they're not pulling. So now, before we fully pull them through, we probably should get some glue ready. Which I do have. I think a little bit there will do just fine. Because they fit in there pretty snug, so I don't have to like really overly glue them. Pull these both at the same time. While getting this down. Gotta get this top down, even if I have to touch up paint on those doors. I see what's going on. Yeah, I'll have to probably touch up those doors. A little more on this negative. There we go. The negative terminal is kind of pushing up. It needs to stay down. How are we doing down there? That's even harder to fix down there. I mean, we're pretty lined up, but this could go back a hair more. Let's see if we even have power. Now, my biggest question, will this still close? Yeah. Well, that's my biggest question. Are we still going to have lights? Yeah, still got it on that side. That's the side in question. All right, let's make some jumpers for this that we can tie onto here. This is going to be a junction. I'm going to glue this onto here. Okay, I got jumpers coming off the cockpit. What I did is the LEDs, I made sure the negatives were close to each other and just bent them in and soldered them together at where they cross, and cut one off and took the other little terminal and made a place where I could solder the wire onto. And that way I only need one negative wire for those two, those two LEDs. And then took a red wire, soldered it to one positive terminal, and just looped it over, pulled a little bit of insulation back. So I had a little bare wire, wrapped it around and soldered it. That way I only need one red wire. So I made little jumpers to attach to these jumpers. And we'll see if this all works. I taped them up so they won't touch each other. And then what I'm going to do, we'll have a set of red and blacks coming from the wing. The red will go with these, and that'll be the red wires pretty much throughout the ship, except for the engines, are going to be the always on. As soon as I turn the battery on, those are going to come on, which will be the cockpit lights, the wing lights, this turret light, and that's it. Engines will be on their own, and the interior will be on their own, and the interior will also include what else I'm going to run up through the wings. So I'm going to run a blue jumper because I have the blue wire here for the bunk lights. So I can jumper that, which will work off that interior switch, and have the landing ramps because there's two holes in those wings. One's got to be going to those landing ramps. And if I can get one in there instead of, because I couldn't get them on the down here, but I'd rather have them on the ramps than down here. I mean, that's kind of a cool effect where you see the landing gear lit up, but yeah, there we go. It is working. Getting a lot of glare from the camera. Let's see if we can get this all to tuck in there. Yep. That'll work out nicely. And we got our engine lights working. Turret ball. And we have everything on, so these should be on too. Yep, bunk lights are working. These two rooms are light. But like I said, we can turn those off to save on battery power. Once sometime it might be cool because I think the bunk lights you'll see a little glow. If you look in there, it would have been nice to get some type of lighting in the main area in here, but where would you put them? Well, everything's coming along very well. Like I said, I still got to get this magnet thing going down for that. Well, landing gear are all cleaned up. That's the ones that go underneath here. And you can actually see how they're going to sit in there. And it's the hatch. We got to clean that up a little bit better underneath there. And maybe figure out a better pin system because they just put little nubs that are supposed to meet little indents. But it's a little loose. So I think they're going to fall out and also not stay closed. But we'll fix all that. That's not a big deal. So that is all that. I do want to sand all this down. Which will do. I did that on that one already. It's sitting. And then these are the ones that go on to under this, because this will sit, of course, here. And they all have to kind of meet. So this is the front one, which will go here. And then I'll sit like that. And of course, this goes back here. And then we'll have these. These are nice because you can just open and then put these in. These pieces will always pop off, and then we replace it with these. And it makes it look like they opened. So that's cool. So I'm going to clean these up a little more and file these nubs so they fit and start painting them. All right, got the landing gear all painted up. Got to do a clear over these, especially these hatch bay doors. Was going to keep them simple hull color, but I think it just needed something more, especially as rugged this track is. So I just went with oily steel and then hit some of the hydraulics with the silver and then did some bronze and copper just to add some color in there. And she can sit like that now. And then here's the taller ones that sit on either side of the main hull. And I just did that gun steel. Wanted to do a little accent, different metallic there. Figure I'd stay with the red up here since the actual landing hatch is red. And then bring more of the hull color back into the main pieces and and make the foot an actual steel. That looks cool. And did some bronze and little highlights just to give different colors when you look under there. I'm going to put this together, see if we can get it to stand on its landing gear. But since these are all, and I got to paint these hatches yet. But I need to figure out because the little peg is a little loose there, and this one pushes up once in a while. But we'll figure that out. I might just take a little piece of filament, unprinted, and just cut and glue and make a better peg, I think, for these doors. But yeah, I'm going to come back. I'm going to put this together off camera because it's going to be probably a struggle since this isn't glued, and I'll have to stick the wire that's under here for its engine down in there anyway, if we can. Make sure that's clear. So we'll figure it out. So I want to see this thing standing and see if we can even get the wings up and on too. Okay. Here's what his whole landing gear situation is going to look like. Those are fitting in nice. We'll just have to touch up some areas. But a lot of this is getting, like I said, knocked up. Like here's some chips and stuff, but that's great. That's kind of why I didn't seal this so it could scratch. Just from handling to give it that, worn look already. Let's see if we can get this hatch, this hangar door to stay. But then it's going to flip over. Of course not. Hey, that's sitting pretty level. Now the centerpiece on the bottom, I have to, because where this piece goes in, I have to notch to make that fit. So that center, this piece here on the bottom is probably sticking down a little further than the side legs are. That's why we have a little bit of wobble. Plus, I might not even have these pressed in really tight either. But yeah, I gotta clear that spot right there for that piece. So the back can come down. The wire went right through the tunnel. And there might be something back here too that has to get adjusted. Yeah, because that pipe's not all the way down. And I didn't do that with this one yet. Like I said, see, these are a little loose, so I got to make the pegs a little longer. And it's even harder now that there's landing gear in the way. Oh well, if they fall off, they fall off. Alright, we can actually put you back on. Reattach these wires. Yeah. I don't know if it's going to hold. I should really put tape on at least one of these leads because they're going to short. They're going to immediately track to each other and short the circuit. So if I at least put a little sliver of tape on one of them, they don't really have anything to short to anything else. But I don't know if this part has enough. Well, it's going to hold it on. Okay. I don't know if it will with the wings on. That is the thing, because the wings were normally sitting down on the table. I don't know if it's. Once you put the weight of those wings on, I think that's going to want to fall off. Well, at least a lot of weight's back there, so it is kind of trying to push on. No, it's going to want to do that. So we're going to have make sure that is glued really tight, really good. So we're probably going to have to epoxy that. For now, I'm going to have to just see if I can rest something back there. This one in a little more. There we go. That's sort of what she's going to look like up in the air. And of course, our one came off. It's going to be cool. Most of the time, I'm not going to have it landed. Most of the time, I'm going to have it with the wing up, and then it has a stand that holds it. I got to start printing that holds it here. Okay, we kind of got her makeshifting. There's the cockpit lights on. Let me see if I turn this camera light on. We can see down under there now. Yeah, that'll be cool. And there's the landing gear. So that's how she'll look when she's sitting. Engine's still going. I can actually turn this camera light off. Gun turret lights are going. Engine lights going. Yep. And I can see some lights down in there. Yeah, it's coming along nice. Now we just gotta paint this red on the other side of the wing. Get all these hatches painted. These get solid red, so that's easy. And I'm not sure if I'm going to do solid red underneath, or maybe like an aluminum to kind of make them look like a. I still got to clean the inside of them too, sand them down and stuff. I'll hit them with some heat. That'll make everything tight, any of the loose plastic, and then sand it. But I don't know if I make them aluminum, so when they're down, you can kind of see like a normal metal color. I think I'm just going to do them all over solid red. There she is. Come on, focus. There we go. Cockpit's looking good. I think I might do a little something to try to dim that light down a little bit. But once it gets its glass in, I think I'm going to put the glass in. I'm going to try. Let's see how clear it gets. I know for sure I can get them clear enough to put these two in. Because those definitely, I think, need to be in. But do I stick with the normal Star Wars thing where they don't put glass in? Now, I think the ILM, even though maybe when they were filming with it, it doesn't. But the one I see on there, they were shown on Adam Savage's Tested, I saw glass. And of course, the turret has glass because they made that out of a clear Christmas bulb. Or a Christmas ball. I don't know if I said bulb. Yeah, they made that out of a clear Christmas ball and then actually added the solid styrene, glued it right on the side of the clear Christmas ball. And then we gotta get some lights. There's a light goes right in there. There'll be bright headlights. I do they do have clear parts to print, but I'm going to see if I can get like a 5mm bulb in there, and then it has that lens that'll actually shine like big spotlights. Because those I do want bright. Now in person, this cockpit light's pretty okay, so might not have to, but I definitely want to dim this one down. Plus, I don't know how strong my batteries are. This one's quite bright. Right now, I kind of like it, but I don't know how it's going to be with full battery charge. But I've been running this thing gradually as I put circuits on and let it run overnight. That way I can find any problems before we fully close up, even though this ship's pretty nice with getting access to anything because everything's down in here where this gets hatch covered eventually. That junction that's right back in here. Of course, it's not going to want to come off. Everything is still a little tacky. But yeah, where we have all the, and it goes to the engines and that junction. Here we just got to make sure it's good because that's really for the bunks and this and that. But that would be only if we have a problem happening here. It would be an issue. Probably could still pop this off, but I need to use epoxy, so that's going to be pretty strong. Super glue you'd be able to pop, but I think I need to make sure it's pretty strong. But yeah, she sits pretty high off the ground, but she would have to just to get that part to clear. But yeah, it's holding on its own, and I think it will hold once this is really fastened. So like I said, I'm going to have to make sure that really gets glued on tight.